So we've created calculations in two different spots within our Excel document. We've created calculations inside of the pivot table. We did an average of the freight, and we did the exact same thing inside of our data model through the PowerPivot tool. Now, one of the benefits of creating calculations such as the average freight or the count of ship via inside of the data model is we can now create KPIs or key performance indicators based on those calculations. So for example, I want to be able to take this average freight here, which is $72 and roughly 24 cents, and get the average, not for the entire set of orders, but perhaps for various countries. What was the average for USA versus Canada versus Brazil versus France and so on, right? But now I want to set up some thresholds. And I want to say if we've got more than $60 that are going out to any one country as an average freight, then we're doing something wrong. That should get a low mark. Right? If we're below $15 or below going out average to any country, then we're doing really well. Right? We want the lower freight. This will reward our customers. Right? So we're going to set up a KPI that holds some thresholds, a high value, a low value, and get back some indicators, some little graphical indicators letting us know how well that average freight for that country is performing within our thresholds. So take a look. This is how you create KPIs, key performance indicators, within your Excel data models through the PowerPivot tool. So first step, you've got to have the calculation. So I've already created the average freight, $72 and roughly 24 cents. I'm going to right click on that new calculation. And one of my right click options here is to create a KPI. I'll give that a click. This is going to open up my interface to be able to set up the actual KPI. This is essentially where you're going to set up those thresholds, right? What's your maximum value? What's your minimum value? What's your goal essentially? Where are you trying to get to? Okay, and your bottom value, right, where you don't really want to be. So you've got two ways to be able to define the target. This is where we want to be. I can do it based on a calculated field, meaning another calculated field back here inside of my data model, or I could do it based off of an absolute value. Now, the only other calculated field that I have here is the distinct count of ship via methods. So I'm not going to use that. So I'm going to say an absolute value, defaulted me to 100. I can see that my range, kind of my threshold down below, ranges from 0 to 40. If the average freight is somewhere between 0 and 40, I'm in the red. If it's above 40 but below 80, then we're in the yellow. If it's above 80, then I'm in the green. Now for me, I'm thinking of my customers, right? Customers come first. I shouldn't be charging them more for shipping their products, right? Customers are going to be happier if I charge them less. So really, I want this to go the other way around. So down below, I can swap the way that I portray my scale within these thresholds. Currently, I'm going from red, yellow to green. I'm going to go from green, yellow to red. I want to swap that threshold. So now I've got, hey, if it's below 40, then I'm in the green. If it's between 40 and 80, I'm in the yellow. If it's above 80, I'm in the red here. Now I'm going to adjust these values. I'm going to say, you know what, if we're average, this is average for a country. I'm going to say if we're $60 or less, then we're in the green. And we'll say if we're, we'll say, I can adjust this either by typing the values in there or dragging these little icons. We'll say if we're $90, let's find 90 there. And you know what? 60. Yeah, I think 60 sounds good. We'll leave it as such. All right, so if I'm $0 to $60, bing, 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 we're doing good. Our customers are happy. We're not charging them as much for shipping. If we're between 60 and 90, we're in yellow. And if we're above 90 as an average for the country, then we're doing poor inside of there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. So I've now created the KPI inside of there. I can see the little KPI marker down there next to my calculation. but we're really not taking full advantage of this just yet. All we've done is created the calculation and set up the KPI. Now let's actually put this into our report. So I'm going to close my PowerPivot window. We'll get back to Excel. There's my pivot table. I've already got the countries out there. I've already got the average of freight. But now I want to bring in the KPI so I can see how well we're doing. So I'm going to go hop over to my pivot table field list, open up the order info table, and scroll down. I've now got my average of freight with the KPI. I'll open that up. I've got three things in there. The value, which is what I already have out here. I've got the goal, which was the goal marker that I put back inside of the KPI, the threshold area. And I've got the status. The status is the actual KPI, the indicator that shows us how well we're doing. So I'm going to turn that one on. I'll turn on status. And I've now got a KPI based off of the KPI within the data model. So remember, if it was 60 or below, we're in the green. There's green and green and green and green and green. If we're between 60 and 90, we're in the yellow. And if we're above 90, we've got the red. A key performance indicator based on a calculation within our data model. And because of the way that we are displaying it here, we're getting KPIs based on the average freight for each country. Try this out. Jump back into your data model, create the calculation, average freight if you don't have it already, right-click on it, and create a KPI. You decide on the numbers. I felt these were good because we don't really have a huge scale inside of here. So 60 below, great. 60 to 90, above 90, we're not doing well. So try this out. Set up your KPI within your data model and then incorporate it into your pivot table.